we would like to come forward and welcome you all in the name of Ethel. A special greeting.
So, I'm not going to use the mic. Can everybody hear me?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Ethel lives down the hall from me, and when I came here a month ago, she told me everything, how to do stuff, how not to do stuff, and all the rules, and she comes to my room each night for a hug and a kiss. Good night. Now, I'm introducing Ethel because I can't imagine anybody in this room that has not been touched by her kindness, because she does everything for everybody, and she's afraid to do this. So I said, I'll sit in the front row and you can look at me and talk to me. So that's what you're going to do, right?
Okay.
She's a wonderful, wonderful woman.
Thank you very much. That was lovely. Actually, if you're not careful, I'll send these notes over to you and you can finish your program, Becky. Did you hear that?
No, I can't hear you when you have it too close to
Too
you.
close, yeah.
How's that?
Better.
Okay. I forgot what I said now. Anyway, thank you for the nice.
Well, thank you for being the interviewer.
Well, we think, I know what I was going to say. We think you might be the next one sitting here doing the interviews. So be careful. Okay, as you might have guessed, we're going to go ahead and Ethel is going to tell us what her life was growing up. And is everything all right on the sound?
Yeah.
Okay. The thing that interested me the most is the Hungarian gypsies. And you'll have to get her to tell you about that, because that is really neat. I thought she was pulling my leg. Okay, Ethel, you want to tell her what a Hungarian is?
Yes. First, I was born February 10th, 1943, which is a birthday I share with Catherine Bamcha. And this birthday, she's going to be 104, and I'm going to be 76. And she lives across the hall from me, and I call her my mom, because she is very like my mom. When I was born into a household that had, my mother married my father, and my father had 3 children already. And, but when I was born, they were all old, 20 and 18, out of the house, living their lives. So when I was born, I was like an only child, basically. And my mother and father hired themselves out during the Great Depression as a maid and a butler, and that's how they survived the Great Depression. And I used to hear stories of that. Only stories, because I didn't have to live through it, thank God. But it was very interesting. Now, my father was a member of the Roma culture. The more common name for that is gypsy. So part of my heritage is Hungarian gypsy. And my relatives and I laugh about that, because whenever we do something wild, we can honestly say it's the gypsy in us. And that is probably why I love parties so much, too. I don't play the violin. I don't dance on tabletops with a rose in my mouth. But I guess the other things hold true for me. Not the wild stuff, but yeah, the wild stuff. pretty much. And Joy, did you want to ask me another question about that?
Well, not strictly that. Whoop, not strictly that. But you said you like to, I wanted to know what activities you like, and you said you like to, make things with your hands. You like to be, does that come from the gypsies
I
as
like
well?
to decorate, I like to do things with my hands, creative, like arts and crafts and stuff like that. I got that when I was a kid, young child, because I always enjoyed creatively painting the sidewalk with a big can of water and one of my dad's paintbrushes when I was about 4 years old, painting the sidewalk on cloudy days, making designs, everything like that. And then of course it would evaporate in 10 seconds, and that would be very frustrating to me. But I'd go back and do it all over again. And that was very much fun for my creativity when I was 4. My parents were divorced when I was 5. I had a very difficult childhood. My father put me on a train with my mother, and I never saw him again until 6th grade. We came out here, my mother and I came out here because her relatives were out here. And it was a hard way to go because I couldn't understand why we had stucco houses and sunshine when I had just left Cleveland, Ohio in a snowdrift. Missed the snow terribly. And missed my dad, but I think that the hard parts of my growing up were what made me who I am today. And you have to have a sense of humor about these things, you know.
Did you tell me that you didn't travel like gypsies or no?
No, I didn't travel like gypsies. We stayed put.
And, okay, I was just wondering if that had something to do with your...
No. Well, I don't know what my dad thought. He's traveled around a lot, but I didn't really grow up with him, so.
Yeah, no.
Just heritage.
You went on to high school then, and that was Immaculate Heart High School?
I went to Immaculate Heart High School. Sister Jean Murray's sisters taught there. I had a wonderful time in high school. Probably because I was always in trouble. And I enjoyed things like cutting class and going to the beach. And one time I wanted to cut class and go up into Ferndale, which is the adjacent area to Immaculate Heart High School, and it was off limits. You could get expelled for going there, but I was pushing the limits. So I wanted to go there, and the chapel area was built like in a quad. We had classrooms, and then the chapel over here. Well, the bell rang, and I was sitting in chapel. And then I thought, well, I gotta get out of here. I couldn't get out because my English class was right there, and Sister McTild was looking out the window. So she saw me, so I went back into chapel. I spent that whole time of cutting class sitting in chapel so I wouldn't get caught cutting class. Oh. But anyway, I loved high school. I had fun. I had one nun in particular, Sister Rose Carmel, who took me under her wing, so to speak, and she kept me from getting kicked out of school and was a guidepost for my future life. she helped me to understand myself a little better and to try not to get into trouble. And it was because of her that at the end of high school, pretty much I took a semester off to go to college, but Magnet Heart College. At the end of high school, I entered the convent, Sisters of the Good Shepherd, and they took care of delinquent girls. I was very attracted to this order, probably because of that. And they had a house, the novitiate was over on Arlington, 1500 South Arlington in downtown LA. And I went there, I was there for 6 months, best time of my life. I learned how to fly a kite and to ride a bike and roller skate. We had a ball. And then when I was accepted to receive the habit, I decided, no, you know what? I'm more like one of the delinquent girls than I am like a nun. So I left. And then I went back to college. I went to Mount St. Mary's College and studied hard, was a good kid the whole time. Didn't have much fun, but I was studying and I had a career in mind. I had a career goal of being a probation officer.
I got that down here. The other thing that you would speak of at that stage of your life was the spiritual director that gave you so much. Is that about the same time, or is that a different time?
No, that I didn't have the time that I had my spiritual director for the first time was when I came here to the Nazareth House. And I have a spiritual director here at the Nazareth House, Father Tom Welbers. He used to be my boss at Good Shepherd Church. He was pastor there for 6 years, and I was his employee for those 6 years as a parish secretary at Good Shepherd. And but I found that his patience and his support and his giving and his teaching me how to be a better person, how to be the best self I can be. And I have learned that it is never too late. I'm 76. Most of you are older than that. But I see most of you, look at Catherine, 103. Look at what she does.
Which is she?
This is never too late.
In the second one.
It's never, ever too late to become who you want to be. I really believe that.
Along the same lines, wondered how you feel about the next generation coming along.
Oh, the next generation.
You know, you hear so many people say the kids aren't doing the right thing, you know, pounding. And I don't feel that way, and I wondered how you felt.
I love the upcoming generation. I think they're full of promise. I don't know how much I have contributed to the next generation, except I know I have friends of all ages. And I know that sometimes the young people, in telling my stories, can gain value from them. And I can feel like kind of become their mentor, because we all have so much to offer. Look what we've survived. How many years we've survived, and look at what we've been through. And they're just starting out, and they need us. I do believe that.
That's good. I think that maybe we could get some opinions from the audience at this stage. Anybody have anything to add to this? Nope.
What's the question, about the younger generation?
Yes. Well, there we have a hand.
This is kind of off the subject in a way, but I'm very curious. I think we all would like to understand that what if we were away from the church and then what brought you back?
Oh,
Is there a
okay.
microphone?
I don't know, most of you don't know that I was away from the church for 23 years.
Just repeat the question, please.
Yeah,
Repeat
Oh,
the question.
sister wants to know why I left the church and what brought me back.
How old were you?
I was in my 20s and 30s. Okay, well, I left the church when I started working for the county as a social worker. And I was spreading my wings, and there were all kinds of new things to do back in the 60s, like smoking pot and having parties that lasted the whole weekend. I was a weekend hippie because during the week I worked for the establishment as a social worker, but on the weekends I changed clothes and became a hippie, or at least a hippie wannabe. And I began to question my values and my faith. I wanted very much to be accepted and to be loved and to be valued and a part of that social group and that society. And I couldn't do that and go to church. It was incompatible. So I chose to do that. I gave up my faith, but I didn't really give it up because in my heart, I still believed in the Eucharist, in Holy Communion. And I remember once in a while, I would go to Mass, not attend Mass, but I would go in and kneel for Holy Communion. I would go up in the aisle and receive Holy Communion, come back, go out to my car and turn up my radio and blast it and sing along with the Lord. And I never, ever lost my faith in the Eucharist. And I think that, more than anything else, brought me back to the church. That and other influences, like I had a doctor that said to me one time that he did something very special for me. And I thought to myself, if he, as a man, a human being, can love me as he does, how much more does God? And then I got cancer, and that was a real conversion experience in my life. I had breast cancer back in 1990 now, a lot of years, 28 years ago, I had breast cancer. And I was hospitalized at St. John's Hospital for 1 week. And I was able to receive the Eucharist every day. It was so important to me. And I thought to myself, oh my God, you know, if I could just realize the only important thing in this life is love. That's the only important thing. If I could just realize that. And I began to. I didn't have a job at the time. I was worried about my living, where I was living, my clothes, how I was going to support my car. You know, all this stuff was going on in my head. And then I realized none of that mattered. Only God, only love of God, period. Nothing else mattered. And that was my conversion experience. And I came back to the church. I never left it. And when I thought to myself, how am I ever going to go to Mass? Then I thought, I will go to Mass if I ever feel like it's an obligation, like I have to go. I will not go, because I feel like it's an insult to the Lord. You're going to the banquet of the Lord, you're going to receive Holy Communion, and you're saying to Him, I don't really want to be here, Lord. I'm here because I have to be here because I don't want to go to hell. No, that didn't fly with me. And I never once felt obligated to go to Mass, and I go to daily Mass now.
That's lovely. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Well, we're going to have to straighten up here now.
Uh-oh.
Let's see, you said that you were the first in your family that, oh, did anybody have anything they wanted to say at this stage? Did I see anyone's hand go up? Nope. Okay. The proudest moment was in your family.
Oh, yeah. I was the first person in my whole entire family, and there were a lot of us, to graduate from college. That was one of my proudest moments.
Fantastic. She was the other person.
Now, let's get your reading material.
Uh-oh.
And you said your favorite music was West Side Story, so I can stop right there. That's my favorite. But what about your reading? Did you have
My
anything that was...
My favorite all-time book is called God's Fool by Green. It is a story of St. Francis of Assisi. And Father Tom gave that to me back at Good Shepherd. As a matter of fact, he gave it to me in the confessional. So, it's a beautiful story of St. Francis of Assisi. And it tells of his life, that he was kind of an oddball, kind of a little crazy dude, you know, kind of, he didn't have the finesse of a lot of the other saints. And I thought to myself, wow, here's a saint I can relate to. The dude was a little crazy. He was very foolish in some of the stuff he did. And I said, I can relate to that. I found a saint that I could relate to and emulate his life. So I have, I wear a towel, which is the Franciscan symbol for the Franciscan order. And I am trying to emulate their spirit of poverty. I don't do too well because I have a lot of things, but I'm working on it. And their spirit is, don't have anything in your life that takes the place of God or that would distract from God. And that's hard because I have many things in my life. I'm working on it.
What about your occupation? That you, a probation officer, social worker?
Yes.
Where were you working that, you said that, didn't you? Where you?
I was a probation officer in Central Juvenile Hall, Los Angeles County. And then after a year, I transferred over to being a social worker in the Division for the Blind in Los Angeles County, on Adams and Grand. And that was fun. I enjoyed that so much. But then I became ill, and I couldn't do the work anymore. So I was unemployed for 11 years, and finally got back in the workforce again. And then I became a peer counselor for Porto's West Side Neighbors, and then I became a parish secretary at Good Shepherd Church for 20 years.
That sounds phenomenal. I don't know where you had the time for that. And you had someone's children. Where did they come into your life? Through friends?
Excuse me 1 second. Before you go on, I'm just wondering, are you able to talk at all about what it was like being a probation officer and
Sure.
what kind of things you did and what you encountered, and
Okay.
then your other job when you moved over to social work and why?
Okay.
That's not.
I worked in Central Juvenile Hall in Girls X confinement unit. We had girls up to 17 and as young as 7. It was a juvenile jail. It was pretty horrible, pretty hardcore. And I remember what made me decide that I was going to quit. Two things. First of all, a girl came in and I was helping her make her bed. And she wanted to talk about how upset she was because she was arrested for killing her boyfriend. And she was 16 years old. And so I started to talk to her. I let her talk to me. I sat on her bed and we talked. We talked for about half an hour. Well, my supervisor got wind of it and I got written up for that. You were not allowed to do counseling with the kids. You were just a jailer. The next thing that happened to me was there's this other girl who was, I believe, 12 or 13 years old. And she went to court. And she was sentenced to YA, which is Youth Authority. It's a camp up in the mountains. And her mother and father didn't show up. No one was there for her. Not even her probation officer came. She faced a judge alone, and when he sentenced her, she spit in his face. These 2 big bailiffs got one on either side of her, dragged her back into girls' confinement unit. They made her strip, and one of them put his foot up, the other one held her shoulders, and he kicked her into the room, into her room. They took out everything, no mattress, no anything, just springs and the toilet. And this is because of suicide risk. And I thought to myself, I can't do this. This is something, I wanted to counsel them, I wanted to help them. How was this helping? So I received my letter of acceptance to continue as a probation officer, in Central Juvenile Hall with one hand and handed in my resignation with the other. So it was, it was hard. And then I transferred over to being a social worker because I could do counseling. I could help people. I worked in the Division for the Blind, which was interesting because I could teach cane travel and stuff like that, labeling stuff in Braille, refer to the Braille Institute, and I loved it. I loved it. I did that for 4 years before I became ill and couldn't do it anymore. But it was fun.
Thank you, Kristen. And horrible, how horrible.
Yeah?
Well, you can see you overwhelm me. To really. If you could go back in your life, what time would you go back to and why?
Oh, into high school, because I was always into things in high school, activities and cutting class and just having a ball, be carefree. I was carefree. That I would go back to in a minute.
Well, peace and joy as I find my place in the middle. But it's what do you want for yourself as you look toward the future. And that's when you say peace and grace.
I want to experience peace. I want to experience in my future joy. And I'm going to add to that love, because I've received so much from all of you here. I think that's so important. No matter how old you are, you gotta be loved.
You know what's so extraordinary about me sitting here listening to you? I think you were telling one thing, but at the beginning I said something about that this group, what we hope will happen is that you all in time will come forward and do as Ethel is doing, because it makes me think, I didn't really know you. So, let's cry a little.
But everybody eventually is going to be interviewed. Everybody, that's the goal.
All right.
So think about it, work up your nerve, and just remember you're among friends. This is not the hot seat, this is among friends.
So it wasn't so bad after all.
No, I was so nervous.
No, you're
Oh
telling
my
the story.
God.
Maybe do you need glasses? Read the last part here. This is the last question that I asked.
Could have, would have, should have.
Yeah.
Okay. What I put was, it sounds like regrets. And yes, I have some regrets. But I try to live my life in the now. After all, that's all we have, isn't it? It's all we have is the now.
Well, I thank you all for coming, and I hope you feel as warm as I do. I think it was lovely, everything she had to say.